Good evening, good evening, good evening. Good evening. We're back for another live. Okay, let me just share the post first. Just getting ready for something very important tonight. And it's about getting registered to teach in New Zealand. Well, that's not a very flattering angle there, but that's okay. Just sharing the link. Just sharing the link to friends. Give me a moment. And we will start very soon. Okay. Okay. I've sent it to some who might be interested. So let's begin. Good evening, friends. Good evening, fellow teachers, or those who are interested. If it's your first time here, I am Emmeline, and I am a teacher from the Philippines, but right now I am teaching in New Zealand. I'm teaching in the primary school, and basically during these live videos that I do on Sundays at 6 p.m. New Zealand time, 2 p.m. 2 p.m. Philippine time, and am I right? Yeah. 1 p.m. Indonesia Jakarta time, 2 p.m. Bali time, and 2 p.m. 2 p.m. Yeah, you have subscribers. Say hi. Good evening.
Good evening.
You're gonna be quiet though, okay? Because Mama need to talk something important today. So, in this live videos, I talk about how to get registered or how to get New Zealand qualifications assessment, or simply about facts living in New Zealand as an expat or as an immigrant. I linked up the other live videos. You can check them out. We also do upload vlogs or video logs about our life in Philippines, in Indonesia, in China, and now in New Zealand. So if you're into those kinds of things, please do click the subscribe button, get notifications on so that you'll be able to join us every Sunday. Join us every Sunday, right?
Every time you have to go twice. Bye.
Okay, that's done. Go use the pink phone. Come on, go. It's with Kaka. Borrow it. But don't come in here first, okay? Mama's going live. All right, sorry about that interruption. Okay, so today we're going to be discussing about how to get that teaching registration or the teaching license. But before I go into that, I would like to answer some questions first from last Sunday that were not answered because our connection got cut off, or it was already time's up for me to stop the live. I do not want to make the live very long, so that's why we'll try to go into that. First things first, I would like to clarify that NZQA has not changed its price. I tried researching it in my emails, and My invoice says it was 746 since last time, 2019 when I had mine, and it's still 746 today up to this moment. So it did not change. It's the teaching council that has changed. So we'll talk into that in a bit, in a moment. Just give me one more moment. Thank you. All right. And second, a friend of mine sent a question because she couldn't send it in the chat box last Sunday. So she asked, what happens if you have an MA degree but you haven't finished it? So you will just be including your bachelor's degree in the NZQA first. And that is very okay. So what happens if you have completed your MA already? Like for me, I have mentioned previously that I did my MA way back 2010, 2011 in the Philippines, but I was not able to finish it. So when I included it in my NCQA, it did not give a good result because it says that the qualification was not completed. So I suggested that you don't include it if it's not complete. So what happens if you have completed it and you have already finished your NZQA? Will you need to pay another 746 New Zealand dollars in order to get that assessed? No. It's going to be just an additional. You will just add the new degree that you have finished, and you will only be paying around 200 something. Let me check the website so we are sure. NZQA. If you're going to be adding a new one, okay, getting overseas qualifications assessed, fees for the IQA. If the degree is earned in New Zealand, you don't need to have that assessed anymore. But if it's earned overseas, then that is the one that you need assessment for. Okay, here. So if it's just an additional qualification assessment or assessment for teaching, it's 300. It says here 301 in addition to your previously paid IQA. But if it is an additional, within 12 months, no, that's okay. So it's 301 New Zealand dollars to add a new degree, to your qualifications assessment. Okay, so I guess we're ready to really begin about the topic for today. Topic for today is getting certified. I used my phone this time because I wanted to show you guys where to go using my laptop. So we're going to use my laptop. Let me just close some tabs. Okay, I'm going to switch the camera so that you'll be able to see my laptop as I discuss what goes next. All right, so here we go. Okay. So first, you need to search Teaching Council website. This is the one. Click on that. And you get to registration and certification. Let me just close this welcome message. So it's this one. And you are going to be here. Applying for registration or applying for provisional practicing certificate. But because you're not a beginning teacher, you're an overseas trained teacher. So it's this bit right here. Let me just zoom in. Okay, that one. For overseas trained teachers, you click on applying for registration because that's the first that you will do. So you will have this page, and here is already linked as to how to apply. There's a video. And then when to apply, requirements for registration, and how to apply. So you can only get to this bit once you have finished your NZQA. NZQA is prerequisite to getting your teaching council registration. So make sure you have your NZQA assessment first. The result should be at least level 7. Then you'll be able to proceed to this. So you can click how to apply. You can watch the video, or let's clarify on when to apply. All right, there. So you can apply for your registration as soon as you have graduated. For us, we don't really need that. And if you want, if you'd like to, no, those are not necessary. Yep, not really necessary. So when to apply? Just when you already have your NZQA result. So get here and do the registration. Okay, let's go to the requirements. This is quite a lot, so that's why I wanted the laptop to be opened so I can show it to you. All papers that you will be submitting needs to be certified true copy of everything, and they should be colored also based on the original color. Certified true copy of your diploma first. Certified true copy of your NZQA for us. It's important. Overseas trained teachers. Declaration. This one is also important. All of these are actually just within the website, so you can look at it in more detail in a slower version. And then consent for police vetting. And then police vets or police clearances. If you have lived in a country more than 12 months. So in my case, I gave them my Philippine NBI clearance. I gave them my China police certificate, and I gave them my Indonesia police certificate. So there's 3 countries that I had to provide. And all of them are certified true copies. In fact, I had my NBI clearance red ribbon, and the rest are, yeah, same with China. I also had it red ribbon, China version, and the Indonesia one, I had it translated. No, Indonesia one already had English translations, so it was just the certified true copy of it. Then declaration again. Declaration of your health condition, actually, your ability to teach. And very important here, evidence of competency in English. So this is the crucial part of the teaching council, because you need to take the English test because you're an overseas trained teacher. Therefore, you need to provide evidence that you are able to speak English at a satisfactory level, or a level that's understandable or acceptable. And another declaration about your commitment to practice Tere Maori, tikanga, or culture in your teaching career. Okay, well, that's not so bad. Last time I submitted mine, there were more actually. But yeah, you can get it from the website. You can check out the website. It's Teaching Council of Aotearoa, New Zealand, or Hapuri Matatu. Okay, back to my face, my ugly face today. So what was my struggle with applying for the Teaching Council? Okay, this is the one that's very important to discuss. With Teaching Council, I submitted my documents 2019. I started 2019, but there were some, like the police certificate from China that came a bit later, the police certificate from Indonesia that also came a bit later. So I submitted the rest of it January 2020. And Yeah, if I'm correct. And I got hired even though my teaching council papers are still being fixed. I already got hired in January as well. So, January 2020, and I was asked to join the team in Wellington, an ECE or an early childhood center in Wellington in March 2020. But what happened was COVID hit. We were already done with all of our requirements. We have just finished our medical, but then 2 days after the full medical exam was done for my whole family, New Zealand declared closing its borders. So my 2020 dreams of coming to New Zealand was stopped. It just had to stop. But of course, since I already had the teaching council registration, I had the NZQA. You basically just need these two things to be able to apply. In my case, I applied directly, and we'll talk about that in the next video next Sunday. But today, our focus is really teaching council. So, very important to note is that if you're an overseas trained teacher, meaning to say you're from abroad and you come to New Zealand to teach, whether you will be teaching in ECE, in secondary, or in primary school, you need to provide as much as you can evidences of mentored teaching. So, mentored teaching in the Philippines, we call this as observations. So, we have head of departments, we have subject coordinators, and they normally come and visit our class to observe and give us constructive criticisms, or let's say feedback on how we're teaching and how we can even do better with our teaching. So, for my case, I provided them my observation sheets from the Philippines, my school way back in the Philippines, credits, St. Teresa's College of Cebu. They were very religious in providing us a copy of our observation sheets. So we signed the original and they photocopy it and they give us a copy as well. So I'm very lucky to have those files and still kept them and brought them with me wherever I went. I went to China. I went to Indonesia after Cebu, Philippines. I went to China after, and then I went back to Indonesia. But those papers remained with me because they are like a good assurance that you are doing well, that you are really progressing as a teacher, that you are learning and you're growing. So I kept them with me and they were very useful. They served very useful. Then my teaching from China, I couldn't get actual observation sheets because they do not do that there. Also because I was a foreign teacher, just comes not a regular one. Like I worked there as a foreign expert, so teaching English as a second language. So it was more like it's not an elective subject, but there was another main English teacher, and I was only there because they needed to expose the kids more to a teacher who could not speak Chinese, and the students would really be forced to speak English. So in that manner, my only proof was a letter from the principal, the secondary school that I joined, and he wrote a letter for me. It's like a recommendation letter, but it also narrated the different levels that I taught, the ages of the children, or how long the classes were. So that was my proof. In Indonesia, I also got lucky because my schools in Indonesia, shout out to Mantari Intercultural School Bintaro and Santa Laurencia, Sekolah Santa Laurencia, they have regular observations of teachers, and my mentors or my coordinators or head of departments were very good also with providing me copies of the observation. So it's like a checklist, and they would tell you what things could still be improved. And in fact, in Santa Laurencia, they would also provide me with a yearly like evaluation, a yearly eval of the teacher, and like your total grade or something like that. So it was good. And that proved to be very helpful because when I submitted my documents for teaching council, so teaching council assessed it as a mentored teaching. So instead of the 2 years before I can get the full teaching certificate, I was only given a year. So that means to say, After a year of teaching, when I renew my license or my teaching certificate, it will now be full practice. So right now, I'm holding a provisional teaching certificate. So that is very important to be shared about teaching council. Now, with regards to English exam, which is the one that is most likely the one that most people are scared of. I have several friends who are interested in coming to New Zealand and teaching in New Zealand, but they get turned off or like they move back a bit because they fear the English test. Well, let me tell you. Back in 2016, originally my plan was to teach in Australia, to apply for a teaching position in Australia. 2016. That's long time ago. But when I took the IELTS, because they only accepted IELTS at that time, I'm not sure now because I've not been researching anymore about Australia. When I took the IELTS exam, they needed a 7 for reading, 7 for writing, and 8 for speaking, and 8 for listening. I got, I'm not sure of my scores anymore, but most definitely, I had my highest score was 8.5 for listening, and then reading was the same, 8.5. But my writing, which I felt was my asset, like I would claim that I write very well, that I'm very good at writing, I would say, but it was not the kind of writing that IELTS needed. So IELTS is a very structured kind of writing, and they have like specific formats to see in your writing, like the kinds of sentences that you use and all those things, or the conjunctions that you use. So after I joined a workshop on IELTS, an intensive workshop on IELTS, then I knew about these things because originally I did only self review. So, did that break my heart? Of course it did. Oh, my speaking was okay, but it was 7.5, so it did not reach the one that they needed. It should be an 8. Yeah, an 8 for speaking. Did I get that right? Reading should be 7. Writing should be 7, yes. Listening and speaking should be 8 or up. But I did not get my speaking and more so my writing. Would you imagine? My writing was 6.0. So this is the first time I'm sharing it to public that I did not do well in my IELTS back in 2016. So my mom was very insistent that I take the IELTS again. So I did the workshop, IELTS workshop. It was a week-long workshop focused on getting better results for IELTS. And it was then that I realized that my IELTS was not at par with what they wanted because my writing is free writing, freestyle. So it's mostly on emotions. It's not very objective. It's more subjective. So that was a problem with it. And for speaking, I'm not sure with speaking. It's most likely because it's not about the accent, it's not about the pronunciation really, because I think I am audible and clear, but it's more on the variety of words that you use when you respond to your examiner. Did I take the IELTS again? That's the question. I didn't, because I found out that for New Zealand, when I learned about New Zealand in 2018, because my brother came to New Zealand in 2018, when I learned about New Zealand, they did not really say it should be IELTS. So I took the PTE, or the Person Test of English, the Pearson Test of English. And highest score is 90, and I got 90. I'm sure it wasn't perfect. I think the grammar part, that was the result. The arrows, I mean the bar was not completely down to 90, but all the rest were 90. Overall score was 90. So maybe it's just really for me. So yeah, do not fear the English tests. They will cost, of course. They cost money. My PTE, I did it online. So it's good if you make yourself familiar with the different kinds of English tests that's accepted for New Zealand teaching certificate. I have friends who also took a different one. I couldn't pinpoint the exact name, but it's a language test that's also acceptable in New Zealand. And it turned out to be okay too. So my advice would be research, try the different tests. There are several free tests for English. There's IELTS tests that are free. There are several PTE complete tests that are free. I did self-review for my PTE. I did self-review also for my IELTS, but I did a workshop after I failed. Not really failed, after I did not get the score that was needed. But I was not able to use it because I did not take the IELTS anymore, but because I opened an online tutorial business, so I was able to use it to teach secondary students who are eyeing on going to universities abroad. So they're from Indonesia and they want to go to Hong Kong or they want to go to UK. So I used what I knew from the workshop, my IELTS workshop in those classes. So it did not prove to be not useful. It was still useful in a business way. I got back my payment from the workshop. Anyway, so going back, English tests, you really just need to face them. There are formats that would fit you, so it's just a matter of finding out more about the kinds of tests, make yourself familiar because yeah, you need it. You need it for your teaching council certification. How much, by the way, does it cost? Okay, I forgot to mention that. It's also in the website, but let me just share it with you. How much will it cost? Oh, did I close it? Teaching Council certification has already increased just 2 years ago or a year ago. A year ago when I was already here. Back in 2019 when I paid for my registration, it was 300. Let me get the exact amount. It was around, let me see, Teaching Council invoice. But I remember I renewed it this year because I received my Teaching Council registration 2020 and then it expires 3 years after. So when I paid for it again this year, it was 500. Oh no, 403 this year. But last time, 3 years ago, it was, ooh, where is it? I'm sure it was around 300. I couldn't find my receipt anymore. But I was sure it was around 300. Yeah, I did not have the receipt anymore. Teaching Council. So it has recently increased. But that's okay. What is 300 when you can come to New Zealand, right? And it's not in bulk. I mean, you don't pay it one time, the whole thing. So you pay for the NZQA first, you prepare your documents while waiting for the NZQA result, prepare your documents for Teaching Council, prepare money to pay for the Teaching Council, prepare money to take the English test, and then you can go ahead with the Teaching Council. So Teaching Council registration now is 400. Yeah, it's 400. Overseas trained teachers to apply for registration. Okay, I'm just checking to be sure. If you renew, it's 464. But if it's a new one, registration only, teacher registration and a provisional certification. Yeah, it's 500. $564.37. Yeah. So that's the difference. Why did my receipt said 403? Oh, I did not see the tax. So it's 464 when I renewed it. I renewed it just 2 months ago. Yeah. So I have a new teaching certificate, but it's still provisional because I came to New Zealand in June, but because I was in ECE and I was not able to renew it right away in ECE, so they started counting when I joined primary school, which is last January. So it's not been a year yet. So they consider this as my first year to complete my mentor teaching. So at the moment, I have a mentor teacher, and yeah, like HODs or coordinators, she's the one who checks on me, or she's the one who it's a different kind of relationship for my mentor at the moment. She's younger than me, but I would consider she's really very supportive. She's really always there. And it's not like the one in Philippines and in Indonesia wherein we get scared when they come to the class to observe. It's different here. It's like they are there because they want to help you. Same actually for the Philippines, but it just gives you a different feeling when somebody comes to observe you, and especially they have this kind of announced and unannounced observation. So here, you agree on the time, you agree on the day, and you don't need to show off anything or like change the way you're teaching just because somebody comes. Supposedly, that should be how observation goes, but when you're in form of observation because they wanted to see something, so that's when it's not very, I don't think it's really hitting the purpose of helping the teacher. So in the case of my mentor now, there's really one main mentor assigned to me, but there are several of them who comes to my class. You just really need to ask help. For example, my deputy principal at the moment, yeah, I would tell her, could you come and watch how I teach structured literacy? Or she would say, when do you think I could come and see how you teach literacy, how you carry the that block for structured literacy? But I have had several visits, some from RTLB. So these are, let's say, streamlined to focus on some kids that needed help. So they would like to see how you're doing in class. So they'll be able to help you address or help out that child more. Like in my class, I have cases of dyslexia. So they come and they try to see, that person has already visited my class thrice. So those are parts of my mentor teaching. And because in school we use a certain tool for thinking, it's called depth and complexity. So I've also been visited twice by another teacher who used to be the deputy principal prior to the new one. And yeah, she was the one, she's also like one of my mentor teacher. So it's not really like a scary thing to be observed. It's not a scary thing that somebody comes and watches you teach in class. So that's mentor teaching here in New Zealand. Okay, going back to what I was saying, teaching council registration. Everything is in the website. You just need to search teaching council. You can only proceed with teaching council once you have your NZQA result, because that's one of the documents that you need to submit. You also need to prepare your English test result, standardized English test. It can be IELTS, it can be PTE, and it can be something else, as long as it's listed in their website that it is an accepted English test. So go for what fits you, go for what suits you. And finally, provide as many observation evidences or mentor teaching evidence as you can. So they can also be in the form of recommendation letters. They can be in the form of observation sheets, but just making sure that in your recommendation letter, you need to specify there the grade level that you're teaching, the subject that you're teaching, let's say the number of hours that you meet those kids or that group, and then, yeah, was it a full-time or part-time job? That's really something very important for certificate of employment. And finally, it is $564.37 to get the teaching council registration. I guess that's about it. Once you have your NZQA and you have your teaching council, I will see you next Sunday. No, don't wait for your registration and NZQA to join me. You can join me anytime, every Sunday, 6 p.m. New Zealand time, 2 p.m. Philippine, Bali, and China time, 4 p.m. Australia time, and 1 p.m. Jakarta, Indonesia time. We'll be talking more about where do you look for work? That will be our next topic. Where did I apply? How did I apply? How come I got directly hired by the school? And what are the different websites or different places you can look for the job? I'll see you next Sunday. Thank you so much for joining me. And see you next Sunday. Where do we check vacancies to be able to teach in New Zealand? Thank you so much. See you next Sunday. Bye.